Well, for more on this, we're joined by Gabe Debenedetti, national political reporter for Politico. Gabe, I want to ask you, based on the report, can you give us some other examples, aside from the DNC hacking, that Russia did to try and influence the outcome of the election?
Absolutely. Well, in addition to the DNC hacking, there was also the hacking of John Podesta's email, which it seems, according to the report that we saw yesterday, is another thing that we can point to Russia for. And in situations like that, what they would do is go into these emails and then allow them to be spread throughout the world using tools like WikiLeaks. But in addition to that, what we saw was them getting hordes of people to act as so-called trolls on social media, posting pro-Trump, anti-Clinton comments, and using propaganda arms like RT, their television network. So basically what they were trying to do was to create a groundswell, not only behind Trump, but really a lot of the focus was against Clinton, trying to undermine not only what she was saying during the campaign, but once it became clear that she was likely to win, as she was likely to win, apparently, to try and undermine what she would be trying to do during her presidency.
It wasn't just the DNC that was hacked; it was also the RNC, wasn't it?
There are indications that there were attempts to hack the RNC, but that's all preliminary at this point. And of course, the report that we saw yesterday did not go into great detail about that. But of course, that's the unclassified report. That is obviously something that a lot of Republicans have pointed out in trying to say, well, hold on here. It's not as if Russia was trying to elect Donald Trump. The RNC was also targeted, but what is clear is that the DNC was the primary target here, as we saw over the course of the election.
I want to ask you that, the thing that Democrats, Donald Trump keeps saying is that the Democrats are using this because they're crying over the elections because they didn't win. They're sore losers about this. When you take that criticism, do you think that at any point he's going to try and change his tune on his take on Russia and the intelligence over the election?
Well, we've already seen him start to soften his tone slightly after he had the briefing yesterday. Before, he was sort of saying, this is ridiculous. I can't believe we're still talking about this. Now he's saying, listen, Russia, China, other people are always trying to hack us. Let's move on. But what he is saying is, let's move on. So we haven't really seen any evidence that he's starting to soften his tone on some aspects of this or harden his tone on Russia. So that's obviously something that a lot of people are going to be looking for. But if you're sitting in Moscow and looking at this from the perspective of the Russian government, there haven't been any, there's no reason to believe, publicly at least, that he's going to change his tone.
And Mr. Trump also recently said, and I'm quoting here, only stupid people and fools want a bad relationship with Russia. So he's taking a swipe at the intel community. Is he now taking a swipe at his critics in Congress?
Absolutely. And those aren't just Democratic critics. He is really taking a swipe at folks like, you look at Senators Lindsey Graham and John McCain, who have said very openly, Russia is not our friend here. We really need to investigate what's going on, to use a term made popular by the president-elect. So we're in a situation right now where the president-elect is really not necessarily on his own, but he has a lot of people on both sides of the aisle who are standing against him when it comes to Russia. And one of the problems for him is that it's not entirely clear where he goes from here, politically speaking, because if there are investigations in Congress, he's going to, if he doesn't change his tune, he's going to be finding himself up against potentially a lot of other Republicans.
We had Kellyanne Conway on CBS this morning on Friday, and she said that there's a plan in Congress that some members of Congress are trying to push together funding to help build the wall in Mexico. This is a big campaign promise. He was going to have Mexico help pay to build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico. So taxpayer dollars, how's that going to resonate with his base?
Well, what he's saying is, well, of course, it was never just going to be Mexico from the start. We'll get, Mexico to pay for it down the line. What we haven't seen so far, though, is Republicans having any problem with this. No one is really going out of their way to say, now, hold on, what you promised was that Mexico would pay for this and that this wouldn't bite into the deficit, for example. Democrats are obviously saying, hold on here. We were never on board with this wall idea in the first place, but this is completely against what you promised. Obviously he's not going to be listening to the Democrats in the minority on something like this. So the resistance is not there yet.
And today, President Obama, he previewed part of his farewell speech in his weekly address. I want to play a bit of it and get your take on this.
We have made America a better, stronger place for the generation that follows ours. We've run our leg in a long journey of progress, knowing that our work is and will always be unfinished. And that's the imperative of citizenship, the idea that with hard work, people who love their country can change it. That'll be the focus of my farewell to you this Tuesday.
Well, the president will deliver that speech in Chicago on Tuesday. Gabe, I'm curious what you think that moment will be like.
Well, it's obviously going to be a very emotional moment for the president, not only because he's leaving after 8 years in office, but because, you know, things did not exactly end the way that he wanted them to. So clearly he's going to be emotional. He is going to be talking about the things that he got accomplished, and he thinks that there are a lot of things that he got accomplished that people should be very happy about, that people should thank him for. But what he's going to try and do, it seems, is really try and lay groundwork for Democrats, but really for Americans all over, to try and work together in what's looking like a pretty divisive moment. What he really doesn't want is for the Trump administration to dismantle everything that he accomplished over the last 8 years. So he's going to try and, you know, set the tone for a more cooperative Washington, but a more cooperative country overall. Now, it remains to be seen whether that's going to work.
Gabe Debenedetti of Politico, thank you for joining us, Gabe.
Thank you.